Hello guys, today we're going to be learning about the body systems for grade A. Over here we have the digestive system, the respiratory system, the circulatory system, and excretory system. By the way, this sensory awareness system is not something we have to know fully because it's like kind of complicated, but it's okay. Over here we have the digestive system. If I can just zoom in a little bit. When mouth enters the body, it goes through a process called digestion. One second. We have a clear example here. The salivary glands produce enzymes like ammonia to break down the food in the mouth while you're eating, okay? So mechanical digestion is going on while you're chewing your food, and salivary glands are producing digestive enzymes, which is chemical digestion that is breaking the food along with you. Then the food becomes a bolus and it goes down the esophagus in a long process called peristalsis. Peristalsis is a series of defining muscle contractions that take the bolus into the stomach. Now, I'm going to explain that. When the food gets into the esophagus, over here, this long tube, it does not go straight in. Instead, it goes very slowly as the muscles around the esophagus, the inner lining, squeeze it down. I'm gonna just show you a picture if I can. One second. I'm just gonna pause it for now. If I can just. Alright, so I can't seem to bring up the esophagus picture. I do not know why. If I can. There we are. So, here is the esophagus. This is the long tube we are talking about. It's a very slow process. When the food enters your stomach, when the food enters your mouth and it keeps on going down, it's going to start where, if you see the pointer on the screen, it's going down very slowly as the muscle contractions around the esophagus, the muscles lining inside, are going to squeeze it down all the way into the stomach. Now, you do not have to worry about the diaphragm. That is for the respiratory system. We're only focusing on the stomach. Now, if I just go back, if you give me a second, this is my teacher's one. All right. Once the esophagus reaches the stomach, you can see the liver, pancreas, and gallbladder are all situated right above the stomach. What is happening here? Bless you, Fatima. Give me a second. So, what is happening with the stomach? As the food enters the stomach begins churning the food. Okay, this is mechanical digestion. This is the mechanical process because the stomach is churning it. It's like moving it around. That's why your stomach growls sometimes. In the stomach, smooth muscle is lining the walls, pulverizing the food. The liver, the pancreas, and the gallbladder all secrete digestive chemicals into the first section of the small intestine. This is the small intestine. As the stomach finishes, as the stomach finishes with the bolus becomes a white, secrety liquid, and it goes all the way to the small intestine. This is the small intestine. The liver, pancreas, and gallbladder all secrete digestive juices to break down whatever the stomach did not do. As the small intestine is absorbing all the nutrients of the food, there are little projections called villi inside the small intestine that are absorbing that carry more surface area for what is it called? For for the nutrients being absorbed by the small intestine. What happens to these nutrients? Well, when the villi absorb the nutrients, they absorb it into the blood, into the capillaries. Capillaries are blood vessels. Now, once all the nutrients have been digested by the small intestine, it goes into this long process all the way into the large intestine through this little opening right here. Now, what happens in large intestine? Inside the large intestine, there are no villi, so no nutrients are being absorbed. It is only water and excess salt that the body might need that is being absorbed by the large intestine. As this absorption is happening, a soft mass, which is poop, is made in the large intestine. As when the now newly formed poo reaches all the way down, it goes into the rectum, and the rectum signals to the body that you're gonna poo, and so you go to the toilet. Stop. And then you go to the toilet, and then you poo through your anus. Stop! Stop! Stop!
Never in my life would I ever expect you to say something like that.
Over here is a short example. Food first enters the body through the mouth, then passes to the stomach and the intestine. It is broken down along the way into small soluble particles that can be used by cells. Now, how does this happen? As we've said, there is an inner lining in the small intestine called villi. They're like fingers. Look at your fingers, or they're villi, like tiny. The villi absorb the nutrients and they absorb them into the capillaries, which we're going to talk about later in the circulatory system. Unused food is expelled from the body as waste. The organs involved in these processes form the digestive system. How is it expelled by waste? By the large intestine, like we said. What organs are present? The stomach, esophagus, liver, pancreas, and small intestine. Now that we talked about the digestive system, let us dive into the respiratory system. I'm going to talk about this short sentence here, and then let's go deeper into it. Breathing in, inhalation fills our lungs with oxygen containing air. Breathing out, exhalation rids our bodies of waste carbon dioxide. The organs involved in this gas exchange from the respiratory system. You can either breathe in through your mouth or through your nose, but please breathe in through your nose because breathing in your mouth is disgusting. When the air enters your nose, please let it enter through your nose, not in your mouth. Breathing through your mouth is disgusting.
I'm watching a video.
All right. The air enters into your throat, which is called the pharynx. It's not here. And then into your vocal box called the larynx. Now, you might notice that the respiratory system has this long tube similar to the esophagus. This and is also in the same exact place. This is because from the larynx, the two tubes separate. So, this is another one, the trachea. Air goes into the trachea. This is a very fast process, by the way, not as slow as the esophagus stuff. And then through the bronchi is a plural. Bronchus is when you're talking singular. Do not look at this. I do not know what they're talking about. Let me bring out a picture. 1 second. All right. Now, in the bronchus connects the trachea to the lungs, all right? It serves no other reason except for that. This is the left bronchus and this is the right bronchus. Now, I know you're going to correct me saying, Yumna, this is the left one, this is the right one. Okay, stop. No. As I was saying, the bronchus connects to each lung. The bronchi connect to each lung. Bronchi is the plural, by the way. This is the white part. All right? Through the bronchi, Air is put inside the lungs through the bronchioles. Think of it as a tree, okay? The trachea is the trachea is the what's it called? The trunk, all right? The bronchus are the branches and the bronchioles are the twigs. Yeah. Now, what are the leaves? The alveoli are the leaves. Okay, can I stop? The bronchioles purpose are to increase surface area available for gas exchange. Now, you can see that at every end of the bronchioles, there's this little flower. They look like grapes. They're called alveoli. What are the alveoli are the site for gas exchange. What is happening with this gas exchange? Normally, there are a lot of capillaries here, and the blood and the alveoli are beside a semi-permeable membrane over here. Okay, like around the lungs. Naturally, the alveoli is oxygen rich because of all the air you just breathed in, and then the capillaries has oxygen poor blood, like carbon dioxide rich blood. Because carbon dioxide is not in the lungs, the carbon dioxide will want to go into the lungs through the semi-permeable membrane because diffusion occurs when particles go from a high concentration to a low concentration, and because the CO2 is the CO2 it has a low concentration in the lungs, it will go there. Now, what happens to the oxygen inside the alveoli? The alveoli's oxygen goes into the into the blood through the same process. Now, once the alveoli receives all that carbon dioxide, the diaphragm, a thin muscle that moves down or up to allow air or to move air out, will now move up so that the lungs contract, pressure builds up, and you breathe out through your nose or your mouth. But never breathe in through your mouth. That is disgusting. Okay, I think I rephrased that a lot. We're gonna go through it very fast now. You breathe in through your nose. It goes down to your pharynx, epiglottis, your larynx, and then into the trachea. Through the bronchi, air enters the lungs. In the alveoli, to the bronchi, air enters the lungs, and the bronchioles are little separate passages for each alveoli. With the alveoli, they're the site for gas exchange. What do I mean by this? I mean the capillaries beside the alveoli, which is not drawn here for some reason, now exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide through a process called diffusion. Once carbon dioxide is given to the alveoli, the diaphragm pushes up, contracts the lungs so there is pressure inside, and you breathe out. Now, try to fill your ribs. Ribs are also an important part of the respiratory system because when you breathe in, your ribs actually expand. Let's try breathing in and out together. Right now, I just breathed in and out, and I felt my ribs expand. Ribs are squishy, okay? They're like spongy on the inside, so they actually can expand. Now back to the other systems. If I just have a second to go back. All right, back to the thing. Now, the main organs in the respiratory system are, if you can tell, the lungs. All right. Now we're going to go to the circulatory system. The circulatory system consists of the heart, blood, and blood vessels. If you just give me a second. This system circulates blood around the body, delivering food particles, dissolved gases, and other materials to every cell and carrying away cell waste. Now, this is the most important system that we're going to have because this is what supplies every cell the energy to perform their activity. Now, you're going to see these common words, arteries and veins. Now, do not fret. I'm going to teach you. Before we learn about the circulatory system, we have to understand how the heart works. So let me just put up a heart thing real quick, and then I'll just put it here for 1 second. All right, now we're going to talk. Now we have the heart here, so I'm just going to explain how the heart works really fast. These are the veins, okay? These are the aorta. Now these are arteries. Now we're going to talk. So, blood enters, like oxygen poor blood enters the heart through the right atrium. Now, inside the right ventricle, it is awaiting the response of the atrium for the blood to flow inside. There are valves here. Wait, where's the trachea? 1 second. Do you see these little openings, these little curves? I do not know why they are labeled. Okay, valves. So these are valves. The blood goes inside the right ventricle and the valves close, so the blood cannot go back to the right atrium. Now the right ventricle, with a very push, like a big push, it sends the, like a lot of force, it sends the blood up to the lungs. All right, so this is a pulmonary vein. No, this is a pulmonary artery. Then, when as the right atrium stores blood, it waits for the right ventricle to be clear and pumps in more blood. So this is like the storage place for blood, and this is like the powerhouse, because this is what's actually pumping it. Now, so this is the left side, and this is the right side, this is the left side. As you can see, the left side is way more muscly. Why? It's because the left side requires more effort, because it is bringing the blood to the body, while the right side of the heart does not need to have as much muscle, because the blood is already coming into it. When the heart has to pump the blood inside, like pump the blood all the way to every single part, it's gonna need a lot of muscle so it can do that. It needs, like, because as the muscle contracts, and then the muscle expands, then contracts, it needs that force, it needs that push. That's why you have the hum bum bump thing in your heart. I do not think I explained that properly. Look at this. Now blood is going into the heart. So this is a vein. Veins are like these little gateways, like little roads that bring blood to the heart. And then arteries are little roads that bring the blood to the rest of the body, not to the heart. It brings it away from the heart. Now, almost every single vein brings oxygen poor. Wait 1 second. Almost every single vein brings oxygen poor blood into the heart, except for the pulmonary veins, which we're going to talk about later. And then almost every single artery brings oxygen rich blood away from the heart, except for the pulmonary artery. And these pulmonary arteries and veins are connected to the lungs, where the alveoli exchange gases with the veins and arteries from capillaries. If you see over here, there's these tubes over here that says blood to lung and blood from lung. When the blood from the lungs, the oxygen enriched blood, because the lungs traded their oxygen for carbon dioxide, when it enters the left atrium processes the blood and then waits for the left ventricle to be ready. Once it allows the blood to enter inside the left ventricle, the muscle expands and it contracts so that the blood is pumped all the way into the aorta through these little valves to the rest of the body. When the body receives this blood through the capillaries, like imagine if your arm received blood from capillaries, like if your arm received oxygen from capillaries, it would give CO2 to the capillaries, and then the oxygen deprived blood would now go into the veins, into the heart, to the right ventricle, and pumped back to the lung, so then the lung could exchange gases with it. If you look closely here in this diagram, you can see all the veins moving and all the arteries around the body. When the veins or the arteries split off into like tiny little webs, these are capillaries, okay? That's all you have to remember. The right ventricle pumps blood to lungs. The left ventricle pumps blood out to the rest of the body. Organs present in the circulatory system are the heart, the blood vessels, the arteries, the blood vessels consisting of the capillaries, arteries, and veins, and then blood itself. Now we have the excretory system. Getting food and oxygen to your cells is only one half of the equation for good health. Your body must also get rid of waste. Filtering waste materials from the blood is the main function of excretory system. The key organs in this system are your two kidneys and also the bladder. If you look closely here, we have the vena cava and the aorta. Remember the aorta, it is the main artery from the heart. It is the main artery of the body. The vena cava is the main vein of the body. Now, when the aorta comes here, it is giving. So remember when we talked about how arteries bring blood away to the rest of the body and away from the heart, and how veins give blood back to the heart. So in the aorta, it is giving the blood to the kidneys. Now the kidneys do this very special task. It's like very important, and it filters the blood. Now livers can also filter blood too, right? So what makes the kidney so important? Well, it is the only organ in our body that can filter urea. Urea, okay? And once the f- and as it is filtering it out, it produces a liquid called urine. So the kidneys, similar to the alveoli, except that the kidneys get rid of liquid waste, while the alveoli get rid of gaseous waste. If you look over here, there's this red part, and it's bringing blood into the kidneys. The kidneys filter this blood, leave behind the yellow liquid, and the clean blood goes to the blue part, which is the veins. Now, the veins bring the blood back to the heart. These little strings over here bring the blood. These little strings over here is where the urine is collected, the pee, the yellow stuff, into the bladder. Okay? And then from the bladder, your body sends a signal that you need to pee. So when you're on the toilet, the urethra excretes the pee. Yeah. So these little like veins and arteries here, they're the iliana. This is the iliana artery, the iliana vein. You don't have to really know them because you're not things over here. So the kidney itself is like really important. It has the renal pelvis, the medulla, the cortex, the renal artery, the renal vein, the ureter. When the vena cava and the aorta like send out like these little passages to the kidney, these are called the renal arteries and the renal veins. So like the arteries and veins beside the kidney are called renals, like they're renal. Now, the sensory awareness system allows each of the systems of the body to respond to changing conditions and make adjustments in order to maintain a stable internal environment, allowing the cells to function properly. The sensory awareness system can also be called the nervous system. Now, if you look in this picture, which is kind of a weird picture, we have the brain, we have the spinal cord. And then, if you just give me a second, I might find a picture. This is the spinal cord. And then we have the ganglion on the lower part. And the spinal cord has a series of veins that go throughout your body. What am I talking about? A series of nerves that go throughout your body composed of nerve cells which transmit electrical responses from the brain. So your body does what it does. So if you move your hand around, that is your nervous system, I guess. Your brain signaling the nerve cells to move your hand. There are these examples. When you shiver to generate heat when you're cold. You feel flushed. Feeling flushed happens when tiny blood vessels in the skin expand, which increases blood flow. And sweating helps cool down your body as moisture evaporates from the skin's surface. Response to stimuli is coordinated between the nervous system, which is composed of brain, spinal cords, and nerves, and the endocrine system, which is made up of glands that produce hormones. Now, I am not going to talk about the endocrine system because I do not know a thing about that. So we're just going to talk about the interactions of the systems. Many of the systems collaborate to maintain healthy functioning of our bodies. We are required to be able to understand and explain some of these collaborations and interactions. Respiratory and circulatory work really close together. It's to the point that in the circulatory system, a lung is also considered a main organ in that system with the respiratory system. The respiratory system transports and exchanges oxygen and carbon dioxide, while the circulatory system transports those gases throughout the body, which we've talked about before. Now, if you see these pictures, we have the arteries and we have the veins. Now, veins have thinner walls than arteries. It's because valves inside the veins prevent blood from flowing backwards. The artery needs a lot of lining, like it has to have thick muscular walls because the blood from the ventricle is pumping very strongly into the artery. So it's pumping the blood into the artery. But with that pressure, the artery has to be strong enough to withhold it and transport it to the rest of the body. Because if it does not handle that, it would explode. So as the blood is traveling down from the artery into the capillaries turn into veins. And by that time, the blood pressure has decreased. The veins can actually handle the blood and not explode. So they're bringing it up to the heart, but they don't experience any pumps from the heart. So that's why veins are thinner than arteries. Now we have the capillaries, which are the connections between the veins and arteries. Capillaries are hair-thin vessels. They're only made of one cell. The lining is one cell. Their walls are made of epithelial tissue, only one cell layer thick, which I just said. Okay, way to steal my words. The respiratory system transports and exchanges oxygen and carbon dioxide, while the circulatory system, the interaction between these two systems happen in the tissue of the lungs. Diffusion occurs between the alveoli, tissues of the respiratory system, and the capillaries, tissues of the circulatory system. So the alveoli are like tissues, and so are the capillaries. And my sister is sleeping on my lap, but okay. Oxygen goes from the alveoli to the capillaries, and carbon dioxide goes from the capillaries to the alveoli. This is the alveoli. It looks like grapes. Yes. These little lines here are the capillaries. They're like little legs of the capillaries. The red blood cells exchange CO2 and O2 with the alveoli with the alveolus. The plural of alveolus is alveoli. The singular of alveoli is alveolus. Circulatory and digestive systems, which we talked about. Now, we talked about how the villi absorbs the nutrients and sends it into the blood system. Now we're going to talk about how the blood vessels transport that to the rest of the body. Transfer of food particles from the digestive system to the circulatory system takes place at the inner lining of the small intestine. through millions of tiny finger-like projections called villi. These villi contain a network of capillaries. The transfer of fluid particles is possible because of a high surface area to increase rates of absorption. The villi absorbs food particles from the capillaries and then transports the nutrients to the cells to be used as fuel. Diet, exercise, drugs, injury, and disease can affect body systems and disrupt how they function. Now we're going to talk about their functions, like simplify. The digestive system breaks down food, absorbs food particles, and eliminates waste. Digestive system is absorbing the nutrients of food, breaking it down, and then eliminates the waste. Respiratory system is exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide, which fuels the body. This is the energy of the cells that they need to function. The circulatory system circulates blood, transports food particles, dissolves gases, and other materials. So, circulatory system is like the mailman, I guess. It circulates the blood, so it keeps the connection flowing. It transports food particles, dissolved gases, and other materials. So, it's like, I don't know how to explain it. Nervous system controls and coordinates body activities, senses internal and external changes. Excretory regulates blood composition and excretes waste fluids. Now we have practice questions. Ugh! Bro, you can't do this to me, man. Describe how carbon dioxide from a cell inside of your hand leaves your body. I need to draw this. I can't draw this, man. Okay, I'm just gonna tell you really fast. Carbon dioxide from a cell inside your hand will leave your body through the capillaries. Now, I told you, when the capillaries, like the arteries, okay, the arteries turn into arterioles and then they turn into capillaries. When the capillaries go down to your hand, they exchange the oxygen rich, they exchange oxygen for carbon dioxide from the skin, from the arm cells or whatever. And then the carbon dioxide from that cell inside of your hand goes into the alveoli, where they switch and swap, and then the alveoli, and then the diaphragm contracts, the lungs feel pressure, and then you breathe out that carbon dioxide. The lungs can expand and contract because the lungs have muscular walls. Is this statement true or false? False. The lungs can expand and contract because the diaphragm under the lungs allow moves down or up to allow air or remove air. What structures help increase the absorption of food in the small intestine? The gallbladder, the pancreas, and the liver. They excrete digestive juices. How might your muscular system help you stay warm? Now, muscle cells control movement. And we know that movement generates heat, so they can move and make you warm. I think. How might your circulatory system help you to stay cool? I guess you can add like sunglasses on it, bro. I don't know, man. Topic 7, body systems and your health. The body's transportation system is the blood. It transports oxygen and nutrients to every cell in our bodies. Blood is made up of many components, including plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Now, this is a topic for another time. I've reached the 30-minute mark, so bye-bye. Hope you never miss me, because I'm not going to do this ever again. I'm going to go back to my cave of math where I belong.